get crazy and disoriented in the name of love. Another week, another great episode on love letters. Men decoded what women often misunderstand about guys. Right, Mr. Mick?
Sure. So we can thoughtfully introduce this topic to spark interest in the right context. This comes with Gore. He writes an article entitled What Women Don't Understand About Men. You can offer a few thoughts. So it's an essay exploring the differences and similarities between men and women. When I first read Gore's essay, What Women Don't Understand About Men, it struck a chord, not because it claimed to solve the mystery of gender differences, but because it dared to speak from a place of quiet honesty. Men, Gore suggests, carry a weight they rarely articulate, a yearning to be seen as worthy, shaped by a world that demands they earn their place. This isn't about stereotypes or blame, it's about peeling back the layers of what drives men, especially in their relationships with women, and how those dynamics ripple into love, vulnerability, and self worth. The essay doesn't pretend men and women are worlds apart, but it leans into the gaps in understanding that can feel like chasms. Gore's words, woven with references to The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell and thinkers like Jordan Peterson, invite us to consider what men chase, not just love, but a sense of being enough. As a writer and book coach, I see this as a call to explore the stories men tell themselves and how these stories shape their connections with others. We can dive into Gore's insights and what they reveal about men, women, and the fragile, hopeful space where they meet. Gore references the hero's path, and I wondered if he meant the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell, since I use this in my writing and book coaching. In any case, he says there's a silence that follows most men, not because they have nothing to say, but because they've never been taught how to say it. Okay, fair enough. It's a safe generalization to say that most men are quieter than women, so let's consider what Gore has to say. He writes that from that silence and through it. I think men hold back their thoughts, live life with a stiff upper lip, and don't always share their pain and concerns. In particular, this impacts their relationships with women, and Gore acknowledges that fact. In conclusion, he adds, though, that there are things that men have forgotten about themselves.
Forgotten. What are the forgotten, Mr. Mick? Are men the strong, silent types?
Gore's essay begins with a striking image, the silence that trails men, not from a lack of thoughts, but from a lack of knowing how to voice them. I've seen this in my own life, men holding back not out of indifference, but because vulnerability feels like a gamble. Society drills into boys early on that respect, love, even peace must be earned, as Gore notes. This unspoken social contract shapes a man's worldview. Nothing is given, everything is fought for. It's a lonely realization, one that can make a man's pursuit of love feel like a quest for validation, where a woman's gaze becomes a mirror for his worth. The references to the hero's journey, likely Campbell's framework, feels apt here. Men often see their lives as a path toward proving themselves, a narrative where love is both the reward and the trial. Gore introduces Jordan Peterson and more on him in a bit to describe how young men kneel before the eternal image of the feminine, not in weakness, but in reverence. It's Tom Sawyer showing off for Becky, hoping to be noticed. But this isn't just about romance, it's about what a woman represents: beauty, acceptance, a fleeting chance to feel whole. When that hope falters, when she turns away, it's not just rejection, it's a crack in the fragile belief that being good enough guarantees love. This vulnerability, Gore argues, is what women often miss. Men aren't afraid of strong women or their power, they're terrified of being seen and found wanting. I've heard men confess this in quiet moments, the fear that their flaws will brand them as inadequate in a world quick to mock. Some overcompensate. They chase status, muscles, or bravado, not to belittle women, but to feel worthy of them. Others, caught in a cycle of fleeting relationships, seek the rush of desire without the risk of intimacy. It's a pattern I recognize from stories like This Boy's Life, where Tobias Wolff's young self grapples with insecurity, yearning for approval while hiding behind a facade. Yet, Gore points out, maturity demands a reckoning. To love a real woman, a man lets go of the fantasy of the perfect one, a painful but necessary death. I felt this shift myself, realizing the poems I wrote for her were more about my ideals than the person in front of me. The Catcher in the Rye captures this too. That is, Holden's tenderness towards Jane Gallagher is tangled in his longing for connection, but he struggles to bridge the gap between his dreams and reality. Love, Gore suggests, isn't about finding a savior or a judge, but a partner, someone as flawed as human as you are. The deeper truth here is that both men and women carry wounds, and love can't heal them alone. Anais Nin's words ring true. We see the world as we are. If a man's at war with himself, love feels like a battlefield. If he's at peace, it feels like home. Gore's friend in the cafe, hollowed out by chasing fleeting thrills, embodies this struggle. Studies like the UK's Lost Boys report underscores this idea that boys growing up without fathers or as role models face higher risks of depression and loneliness, often retreating into silence or distraction. The Catholic Gentleman's podcast on Lost Boys nails it. Fatherlessness and the hyper feminine education system leave young men adrift, craving purpose but unsure how to find it. Scripture offers perspectives here too. Passages like Isaiah 46 through 8 or Proverbs 31:30 remind us that beauty and charm fade, but what endures is deeper character, integrity, and faith. Men chasing the chimera of desire, as Gore describes, risk building their worth on sand. The pursuit of love, then, isn't just about being chosen, it's about becoming someone capable of choosing well. In conclusion, this shift from seeking validation to embracing responsibility marks the transition from boyhood to manhood, a journey that requires vulnerability, not bravado.
Mr. Mick, is it men ask, how do I become worthy?
This is a key question that Gore asks, and it is often built around one question: how do I become worthy? Most men carry around a quiet truth about the world, something they've seen, felt, or just come to know deep down. As we grow up, somewhere between being a boy and becoming a man, you look around and realize everything you want, respect, love, attention, peace, has to be earned. That's the deal. No one hands it to you. A man's social contract is that no one owes you anything because you are a man. Social contract theory suggests that individuals within a society agree to the terms of the social contract by choosing to stay within that society without violating it. This is what men accept. As we grow up, we struggle, pursue, do our best, and maybe, if you're lucky, you'll be loved. Yes, as in a fairy tale, somewhere in the middle of all this earning, a girl walks into the story and everything tilts. Here's where Jordan Peterson fits for Gore, who explains it well: the idea that men, especially when they're young and uncorrupted, aim to kneel before the eternal image of the feminine. Peterson explains this as not in submission, but in reverence. It's like Tom Sawyer hopping on the picket fence when Becky walks by, balancing, showing off, proving himself, hoping she'll see him, hoping he's enough. And it's not even about the girl, not fully. It's about what she represents. Because for many men, especially those still becoming themselves, she becomes more than a person. She becomes the embodiment of all they're chasing: beauty, acceptance, peace, validation. In conclusion, it's her gaze they search for, a mirror that tells them they matter.
Are men the vulnerable type, Mr. Mick?
Men don't talk about it, but it reveals our vulnerability. In Gore's words, a dangerous hope. The eternal image of the feminine has the key to a man's self worth. Several things can happen to have this scenario play out. She turns away, or worse, never notices you at all. It doesn't just sting, it shatters something. Not just the fantasy of romance, but the illusion that being good enough would guarantee you love. I often hear and read that men are afraid of a strong woman or her power on her accomplishments, and they may feel inadequate. That's not true. Most men aren't afraid of women, they're afraid of being seen and found lacking. If a man is lacking, that will not only bruise but brand him, which is debilitating. The world of men is unforgiving and relentlessly mocking most men that go overboard in finding another partner quickly. Vulnerability is not attractive in a man when many women say they desire a guy with a kind heart. The bad boys get most of the attention. It's laughable, ignored, or pitied, doesn't get medals. Men manipulate, cover up, and deceive at this point. They are arrogant, overcompensating, ambitious, create a better body, earn more, and relate tales of how little they care or need a woman. Most of these achievements are admirable, but not as a way to disparage women. Realistically, most men realize that they can't overcome the world, but what are they trying to do? They're just trying to be good enough for her. The good guy is attempting to win over the one who won her heart and win her heart. That's it. The guy feels something that makes life worth living, and she becomes his world. With maturity, the guy comes to realize that his fantasy ideal isn't real. Poof, gone. Just like that to love any woman, you have to kill the fantasy of the perfect one, and that's a kind of death. The ideal is what the guy had striven for and struggled with gearing himself up to the one that she wanted. In my case, I wanted to be a gentleman because that's what I thought women would go for. The poems were for her. That's what made life worth living. That's what kept me going. Most guys can relate because they did something similar or pushed themselves in their quiet time. On the female side, she's only human too. She's a bundle of contradictions, imperfections, and emotions. She worries, frets, and doubts the future. But as a guy, we understand she isn't a dream, she's real. We meet in the middle space as a companion, as a partner, not as a savior, not as a judge. In conclusion, it's two flawed imperfections coming together as one.
How is coming of age celebrated in life and literature, Mr. Mac?
There is a coming of age collaborated in so many ways. A couple of stories come to mind. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, where Caulfield's cynical view of the world make his deep confusion and tenderness, especially towards his sister Phoebe and women like Jane Gallagher. His fumbling attempts at connections, romantic or otherwise, capture that raw, often awkward transition from adolescence to adulthood. Also, This Boy's Wolf by Tobias Wolff is a powerful memoir. Wolff recounts his turbulent youth and his struggles with male role models, deception, and insecurity. His interactions with women reveal a longing for connection and approval, shaped by his rocky relationship with his stepfather and absent father. Each of these works just shows boys growing up. They show them learning, often painfully, what love requires: vulnerability, integrity, and self knowledge. In real life, work begins for a boy when he transitions to manhood, not with machismo, bragging, anger, or pride, but to be a man that women might respond to and desire. There are exceptions, which is the quiet, grounded man who acknowledges his pain but without lashing out. He dispenses with illusions to find something real. Men and women both seem to hit a point of no return. They are bitter, chase fantasies, write off love as a scam, or drown in distractions. They confuse validation with affection. These are ceaseless denizens of the underground who swap one body for another, hoping it'll feel like home. Some men, and hopefully women too, are the ones who grow. They begin to see clearly. They stop seeking women to fill their wounds. They stop seeing love as proof of worthiness. They stop using others to patch the broken places inside them. They realize love isn't a reward, it's a responsibility. This is a deep and truthful reality. You cannot give what you do not have. If you don't love yourself truly, not performatively, you will bleed on the person who tries to love you. That's why it's not just men who need to reflect inward. Women do too, because often love is used as a balm for unhealed wounds. People enter relationships hoping to be completed, not realizing that the best kind of love doesn't complete you, it complements you, it adds to you, it sharpens you. It supports you, but it cannot make you whole. The definition of relationships takes place at this juncture. I'm most comfortable with the language of companionship and partnership. We shouldn't be trying to fill a gap or close a hole as much as finding a mate that complements us as a person. Broken people can't heal themselves and are not able to engage in romantic relationship. They are not ready and they are poised to project their brokenness. Love heals, emerging that area that brings forth whole. It should be in the place where honesty meets effort. Anais Nin wrote, "We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are." The inner life can determine your perspective. If you are at war with yourself, love will feel like a battlefield. If you're at peace, love will feel like home. One point Gore makes nails it. If you do not reflect, journal, or forgive, if you don't, you'll end up hurting people who didn't cause your pain. There is that saying that we hurt the ones that we love. Gore says we want to be understood, but I think the first step in the real issue is to extend respect to people. It's what we all want, and simply as members of the human race, that's what we deserve. We seek to be held without being asked to justify our weight. Men prone to promiscuity, and frankly, I know plenty of women suffer along these lines as well. But these are good men, confused men, moving from one woman to another, not out of malice, but of habit. They don't know any better, or they do, they ignore the higher impulse to correct their behavior. Gore had a conversation with a friend from his university years, and he relates, "We were sitting across from one another in a quiet cafe, and something in him had shifted. His voice didn't carry the same bravado. He said he felt hollow. Even though he wanted to love someone, really love, he didn't know how to anymore." There is a dopamine rush in the after sex calm, the thrill of being desired, cooking breakfast the next morning, laughing, pretending it was something deeper, and then ghosting them when the buzz wore off. The pattern is set, the vicious cycle set in motion, and the cost is the humanity of the person stuck in that dead end. These individuals caught in that endless loop avoid genuine intimacy, pull away from others, and are caught up in the performance. These people are caught up, trained to crave attention, but not intimacy. They seek the real thing, but they don't know how to stay. Desire is the eternal chimera of meaning. It is not real. Young men in particular should consider their liminal place between boyhood and adult masculinity. What do you truly desire? Do you want to be on an endless quest at the bottomless pit of desire? Do you want to be heard, seen, and loved? The issue for young men has reached epidemic levels. In conclusion, studies show that the standard masculinity norms and stigma contribute to men experiencing depression, loneliness, and reluctance to seek help, with loneliness significantly increasing depression and mortality risk, especially among young men.
Mr. Mick, our boys growing up as a dangerous, depressed, and lonely man.
An episode in the podcast, The Catholic Gentleman, addressed this point with the title, "The Number One Reason Boys Don't Grow Up. We Are Making Dangerous, Depressed, and Lonely Men." What happens when more boys have smartphones than fathers in their homes? A groundbreaking UK research study called Lost Boys had revealed alarming trends about young men today. John Heinen and Devin Shade welcome back three-time guest Jim O'Day to respond to and unpack this landmark research and its implications. Together, they examine how the critical absence of male role models, particularly fathers, is creating a generation of directionless young men. The conversation highlights shocking statistics. Women in their 20s are consistently out earning their male counterparts, and young men are afraid to talk to women. This trio explains how fatherlessness, education failures, technology addiction, pornography exposure, and society's ignoring of men are ruining the future of humanity. While secular solutions continue to fall short, this podcast provides both immediate interventions and long term approaches rooted in timeless Catholic wisdom. You shouldn't miss this podcast, an essential conversation about reclaiming authentic masculinity for the next generation. The term Lost Boys refers to two notable UK research reports that explore the widening gaps boys face in education and development, particularly in their early years and throughout adolescence. One of the most cited studies is The Lost Boys: How Boys Are Falling Behind in Their Early Years, published in 2016 by Save the Children UK and led by researcher Claire Reed. This report found that boys in England are nearly twice as likely as girls to fall behind in key language and communication skills by the time they reach the age 5. In that year alone, over 80,000 5-year-old boys were identified as struggling in these areas. The study underscores how these early challenges in literacy and expression can have long lasting effects, influencing not just educational outcomes, but also future employment and life stability. The researchers called for greater investment in high quality early childhood education, especially in disadvantaged communities, to help those close this developmental gap. A second, more recent report entitled Lost Boys State of the Nation was released in March 2025 by the Center for Social Justice. This broader study explores how boys and young men across the UK face systemic disadvantages in education, mental health, and economic opportunity. It highlights troubling statistics such as the growing number of boys growing up without present fathers and discusses the consequences of fatherlessness on male development, including lower academic achievement and increased behavioral struggles. The report argues that without decisive and targeted policy intervention, this crisis will deepen, leaving an entire generation of young men at risk of being left behind. It calls for action in the educational systems, family support structures, and community based initiatives. In conclusion, both studies bring attention to what has often been overlooked: demographic and policy planning and educational reform, urging leaders to reconsider how boys are supported from early childhood through adolescence.
Is education hyper feminine and failing men as lovers, Mr. Meg?
Boys and young men are silenced and alienated in an educational system that is not set up for them. Dr. Jordan Peterson has addressed the topic in a podcast episode entitled The Education System is Hyperfeminine. There's indicators of ideological bias in academia, and this discussion is also very centered on the focus of the question of how university system has also tilted toward the hyperfeminine. Additionally, they examine academia's departure from the timeless questions of good and evil, faith, and foundational philosophy. Both boys and men are not educated on the reality of eternal love. The scriptures state several truths about pursuing love that are eternal. Isaiah 46:8, a voice says, Cry. And I said, What shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades, when the breath of the Lord blows on it. Surely the people are the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. 1 Peter 1:24-25. For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower fails, but the word of the Lord remains forever. Proverbs 31:30. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Ecclesiastes 1:2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Psalm 105. As for men, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field, for the wind passes over it and it is gone, and its place knows no more. In the pursuit of love, it's a question of who you are and who you're becoming. That's the real work. That's what nobody tells you. The pursuit is addictive. Being seen, desired, and chosen makes you feel alive, but if you build your worth around it, you'll stay starving. You'll move from face to face, hoping someone will finally fill that ache you've been crying for years. But no one can, not in the way that you desire. Because real love doesn't come to fill your emptiness, love fulfills. It's not here to complete you, it's here to meet you. Love will greet you wherever you are. And maybe that's where love is: not the performance, not the pretending, not the picture perfect ending, but the quiet, terrifying decision to say, to stay, to show up fully, without the mask, without the jokes, without the charm or the bravado, without the armor you've learned to wear so well. Just as you are, tired, flawed, trying. In conclusion, the reality of how men should love women is not taught in education.
Indeed, totally agree with you, Mr. Meg. Is oh man, how might we bring this conversation to a meaningful close?
Gore's essay doesn't claim to speak for all men, but it opens a window into a truth too often left unspoken. Men's silence hides a longing to be enough, shaped by a world that demands they prove it. By exploring this through the lens of love, vulnerability, and growth, we see not just what women might misunderstand about men, but what men are learning about themselves. Love isn't a reward for worthiness, it's a shared responsibility, a choice to meet someone as they are, flaws and all. As writers, readers, or simply humans, this invites us to reflect on our own stories. What fantasies do we cling to? What wounds do we expect love to heal? Gore's words, paired with the echoes of literature and scripture, remind us that real connection begins with honesty about who we are and who we're becoming. In conclusion, the work of love for men and women alike is to show up unmasked and trust that imperfection is where the real story begins.
Imperfection indeed. Men's emotional landscape and behaviors are frequently misread due to the societal expectations and ingrained stereotypes. A common misunderstanding centers on emotional expressions. Men are often perceived are less emotional, yet many grapple with complex feelings they have been conditioned. Mr. Make, another great episode on love letters. Would you like to plug in something?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind, and thanks for the opportunity. There is the Idea to Author course that's out now. You can also come under the free Facebook page, the Idea to Author coaching community, and also listen to the podcast, The Doctor of Digital, and of course, this and others. If you want to pick up some couple volumes that I have out on Amazon, that's Burning America and the Best Interests of the Children, and On Track to Be Anonymous.
Indeed, people, I'm inviting you to please do listen to our baby podcast, Mental Health 101. And this podcast is created for our mental health awareness. So please do listen, Mental Health 101. Mr. Mick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, my friend. Until next time, stay useful.
Bodycon people, see you soon.